Hello, 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 and welcome to Alexasrewm, where we are not lawyers, we are not medical professionals, we are not law enforcement, we are just people who have opinions about all things going on in the true crime community, including what the heck is going on with the Ashley Benefield case. Ashley Benefield is the former Florida ballerina who's been charged with second-degree murder for fatally shooting her late husband, Douglas Benefield, in an act of what she claims is self-defense. Now, in real world time, the state and now the defense has rested their case. We're going to be getting to closing arguments, all that in real time tomorrow. However, in Alexa's room time, we're a few days behind, so I'm going to do my best to pump out as much content of testimony as possible over the next 24 to 48 hours. What I'm going to be doing is breaking each testimony down into its own video. Ashley even takes a stand, not in this video, but in one of our next videos where we'll do a full breakdown. And I just feel like it's only right to give her an entire video dedicated to her testimony. It's a lot to go through, and I want to make sure that we don't just skip over any part of her testimony specifically. But if you are catching up to speed and you missed my first couple of videos, we went through opening statements. We went through day one with cousin Tommy Benefield, creepy Tommy, Eva Benefield, daughter of Douglas Benefield. Day two, we went through testimony from Stephanie Murphy. Sorry, I'm just like, there's so much testimony and it's been such a lightning fast trial. It's been really hard to gather everything in my brain. Stephanie Murphy, the family court attorney, or family law attorney rather, for Douglas Benefield when Ashley and Doug were going through their custody battle over their daughter. Then we got into Detective Gilliam's testimony. He was the DV detective that was assigned to Ashley's case when she was trying to get the state essentially to acknowledge her RO against Doug in Florida, which was ultimately denied. So we go through all that in yesterday's video, as well as Dr. Broder's testimony. Now, Dr. Broder is pretty significant in this trial because what the state is alleging in his report would have been the motive. This is the state's theory, would have been the motive for Ashley to fatally shoot Doug 3 days before this hearing where this report was supposed to take place. So we go through all of his testimony, what was in that report, as well in the day two recap. So I'll link that in the description below if you missed it. And as always, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you never miss another video from me. But most importantly, make sure you hit that like button because that tells the YouTube algorithm that this is newsworthy news. And I just think that especially with so much censorship and just online, being able to freely talk about these cases, it's difficult. It's not something that YouTube likes, these platforms but I think it's really important to get these stories out there, especially if you are also a DV survivor yourself. So that being said, let's get into our day three recap. So I want to go through and again, this video is going to be just dedicated to Sergeant Brian Keilas' testimony. He is essentially, I don't want to compare him, but the easiest way to explain what he does, he's the Nick Garino for Manatee County. The only difference is that he's a sergeant, whereas I think Nick Garino was and let me actually fact check this. Hold on. Yeah, whereas Nick Garino was only a state trooper. So this guy, I skipped a little bit ahead of his background. He has 19 and a half years experience specifically working with Manatee County. So already, I mean, overall, I think he was a pretty credible witness. Didn't seem to shift or lean one side or the other, or trying to claim that Apple Health data can be count steps as you driving a car on an incline and decline. So we're already in a better place with this witness. So he's going to get into the cell phone extractions, going through Ashley's phone as well as I think Doug's phone, some of the conversations that they were having leading up to the date of this event. And with that being said, let's let the state take it away.
And what training and education do you have to do your current position?
I've had probably over
around 800 hours of various technical training, some related to cell phones, some related to technical surveillance, but roughly 800 hours of total training.
Okay. And I want to talk about specifically cell phones and how you deal with those. So how much training would you say you've had in cell phones and analyzing cell phones?
It's probably a third of that 800, so around 250, 260, something like that.
Okay. When you do what I call a forensic examination of a phone, what do you do? Just briefly.
It's really a case-by-case basis. There's each phone is somewhat of a research project. There's so many variables, but ultimately that phone will get plugged into a forensic workstation. Software would be used to be able to download or extract that data from that cell phone, and that same forensic workstation will use software to be able to decode or parse that data to be able to review it.
When you download, I call it dump, a cell phone. When you dump the information from a cell phone, is it voluminous?
Yeah, it can be. Yes, it's quite a bit.
Okay. And is it easy to interpret without help?
No, you definitely need a certain expertise to be able to look at it. You need software to make it a little bit more of a convenience to be able to look at it, but definitely need some assistance to be able to do it.
And do you have programs, software that helps you with that?
Yes.
What are the names of the ones you use?
Our main program is Cellbrite. It helps us extract the data if it needs to bypass encryption.
You guys remember Celebrate? Where do we remember Celebrate from? The Karen Reed case. So interesting.
And bypass locks, it'll help us do that as well. There's other programs that we use, Gray Shift, excuse me, as well, to be able to unlock the data and extract it. We have toolkits that I like to refer to of data or of software to be able to use.
And give me a general idea of how many phones you've done this with.
Me personally, hundreds. I want to say the unit as a whole has steadily done 200 to 300 leading up to about 2002, and that has increased probably closer to about 500 devices for this year alone, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so the unit 500 devices for this year.
Yes.
And when you use software like Cellbrite or Gray
Shift,
does it allow you to put whatever data you want, for instance, pick out what you want and put it in an easily readable form?
You can filter the reports that the software displays, and if you only want it to include messages, you can create a report with just those messages. Sure.
So for instance, on just your average cell phone, if you did a cell phone dump, you would get messages like text messages.
Yes.
And emails.
Yes.
Internet searches.
Yes.
And all different things that would be on your phone.
If those data transactions exist on the phone, you will typically get those.
Okay. So this software allows you to pare that down to what you want.
Yes.
In the instant case where you asked,
I'm not gonna lie, that was like way easier to understand than however the heck they were explaining it in the Karen Reed case. Like, just remember that guy Ian Whiffen, the Celebrite expert who came in. I mean, I just think this is way easier, and like he seems like pretty qualified to talk about this stuff. He's extracted hundreds of data from cell phone or hundreds of cell phone data. This year alone, his department has done about 500, it seems like. So he seems like this is enough for the state in terms of just expertise, this particular witness. So, and I like the framing of questions for the state in regards to just understanding and dumbing it down to that third grade level. Whereas I feel like during the Karen Reed case, it was just so much dense information that just easily like flew over my head. But I don't know. What say you? What do you guys think? Do you think this was a good line of questioning just to get the general background and context? I know it's not necessarily relevant to the events that he's going to be going into and just the conversations, but in understanding how it works, for me, it feels a lot easier to understand.
Asked to do extractions on 2 phones.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what's been previously entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 11.
And then she gets right into it like that again. And I'm not a big fan of this prosecutor by any means. So I'm just going to give that preface for it. But I will give credit where credit is due. And I feel like this line of questioning, I like how she just gets right into it. Like, okay, we don't need to go in through like, and I know we're not going, it's not like we're going through Jen McCabe's Google searches and we're like, okay, like, is it possible to delete it without deleting it? And that whole circus word salad of a explanation that happened during the trial. But I like how she just, okay, what's your background? Cool. How does it work? Let's dumb it down. Cool. Awesome. Okay. How does it relate to this case?
Can you tell me what those are?
These are the 2 cell phones that I had done examinations on. One of them belonging to Doug Benefield, the other one belonging to Ashley Benefield.
And is that the evidence tag that's on there? Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And does it have your information on it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So did you go through the process that you just explained with both of these phones?
There were differences in the process, but they ultimately we were able to get a path to data and produce a report for that data.
Okay. And which one were you able to extract first?
Doug's phone, we were able to extract first.
Okay. And then were you able to extract data from Ashley's phone?
We were able to eventually. It did take quite some time.
Okay. Why did it take quite some time?
That phone, it was passcoded, or it had a PIN code. I want to say it was a 6-digit PIN code, and the software, it took a long time to actually bypass that encryption or that PIN.
Okay. So if you don't have the passcode or a way to get into the phone, your system can do that?
Yes, it varies in length of how long it could take to bypass, but yes, the system allows for that.
Okay. And you called one of those.
And remember again too, that was a big note. That was a big thing of note that came up in the Karen Reed case is, how they were able to get access to her cell phone. And I think there was something about, and you guys remind me, because I know there was just so much testimony, but about like her giving her passcode to them, or her not giving Karen Reed. I'm speaking about Karen Reed not giving her passcode to Proctor, and essentially there being like, why would she even need to? She doesn't need to give you her password or something like that. But this just again further confirms, and I like kind of paralleling the two, is that you can obviously jailbreak somebody's phone. You can get in without knowing their passcode with the software. So
Doug's phone and one of those Ashley's phone. When you do extractions of the data, do you get information about identifying who owns the phone?
Yes.
And can you just explain what that is?
Yeah, a lot of the times, especially with iPhones, you'll have an Apple ID that could be associated with the person that owns the phone. In the contact information, it'll have the owner's information, so it's pretty easily identify who that phone belongs to, especially with iPhones.
Okay. And the one phone, I'm not sure if it's 11 or 12, that you said was Doug's phone.
12.
12. Did that have identifying information?
Yes.
That identified it as Doug's phone?
Correct.
And then for Ashley's phone, same question?
Yes.
Did you prepare a spreadsheet for this case?
I did.
And what is on the spreadsheet?
It was communication between Ashley and Doug extracted from Ashley's phone from September 20th of 2020 until September 27th of 2020.
Okay. And when you say communication, what do you mean?
In that particular report, it was mainly text messaging back and forth. There were a few phone calls and I want to say at least one email, but mostly text messages.
Okay. And you said you prepared the spreadsheet from Ashley's phone. Did you also look at the information from Doug's phone to compare that information was on his phone as well?
Yes.
Okay. And was it?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 98. You can tell me if you recognize that.
I do.
And what is it?
This is the CD containing the Excel spreadsheet that we just talked about.
Okay. And when you said there's communications between the two, if there were any attachments to those communications, would they also be in your spreadsheet?
Yes, they would. Yes.
And you looked at this?
Yes.
Yes. And is it accurate based on the spreadsheet that you created?
Yes.
State reentry into evidence, States 98.
Any objection to States Exhibit 98? Received.
So I'm going to publish the spreadsheet now. If we could turn down the lights and potentially, it's a little difficult to read, potentially shut the blinds.
So now they're gonna pull up some of the text messages, or at least the data from the spreadsheet. He's gonna start reading through some of the text exchanges between Doug and Ashley.
Okay, so I know this is very small, at least from where I'm sitting. I don't know if I have handed you an exact copy, a hard copy. So I don't know what
He's
it's
like,
easier for
where
you
is
to read.
it?
That print is very small as well. Sure.
So they're gonna approach. I don't know if this is when this is not when they make arguments. They do make arguments about the metadata of, I believe, one of the
Are you going to
images or videos that comes into play later. But again, just kind of future casting.
read from the one in front of you or the one behind you?
I'm going to attempt to read the one in front.
Okay, because I can try and make this a little bigger once we get through what we're looking at. So I have a laser pointer for you. So the red button is yours. And I have one as well. I do want to talk a little bit about these attachments that are on the phone or on this spreadsheet. Are you able to tell when you look at one of these attachments where that image or picture or video came from?
It depends on each attachment. There could be metadata there that the attachment could have been from a screenshot. It could have been from the actual phone, taken with the actual phone. So it's just, again, case by case basis.
Okay, so there is a video on this phone that, and I just want to draw your attention to it, that shows some people at a restaurant. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
No.
Let me, hold on one moment and I'll let you know which one it is.
See if we can.
It's line number 25.
Okay. This is it. Look at that. I mean, that's a ginormous projection screen. I feel like the one in the Karen Reed case was like half the size, but I don't know. I mean, definitely this is a way bigger courtroom for sure. So they're going to pull up the video now.
It's line number 25 on your spreadsheet. Can you tell from what you're looking at where that video came from? Or do you recall from your investigation before where that video came from?
Based on what I'm looking at, it's an attachment from a text message from Doug Benefield to Miss Benefield.
Okay. And when you looked at Doug Benefield's phone, could you tell whether this movie was taken on his phone or sent to his phone?
I don't have a recollection of the actual metadata of the video itself on either phone. This is just looking at it from the attachment perspective, not the specific video itself.
Okay. If we could approach Judge.
See that metadata? Because essentially what the state is trying to prove is and you'll see in this video, Doug, Ashley, and her mom and her daughter, who's not on camera, are all at a restaurant, seemingly getting along, having a great time. So what the state is essentially trying to prove is this video, I believe, was sent by Doug a week before, if that, a week before or so before Ashley had shot him. So what the state is proving is, well, you guys were getting along just a week ago, but the fact of the matter is that could have been an old video that he was resending her. So that's why it's super important to understand, okay, what is the exact metadata? Just because he's sending it a week before doesn't mean, and if he's somebody who's trying to get her back in his life, he's probably looking through his phone, and who hasn't done this with somebody who, maybe you're getting back together with somebody or you're thinking about somebody and you scroll through your photos and you're like, oh my God, I remember like this. And you send them a text. And even though you might be sending it to them a week beforehand of whatever, doesn't mean that is the same date that video was recorded and taken. So ultimately, this is going to be the basis for the defense's argument, is this video specifically. So they're at sidebar.
Okay. So let me hook this back up. And let's talk about what we're looking at first. And then I can try and make this a little bigger so people can see it. All right. So the first column just has the number of the entry, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And the second column is what?
It's just the type of entry it is.
And give me a couple of examples of the type of entry that it is into the phone.
In this timeline, it's labeled as an instant message. If it was a phone call, you would see phone call. If it was an email, you would see email.
Okay. And what does instant message mean? Is that a text?
It's a text.
Okay. And then the third column is what?
It's the direction of that transaction. It's specifically dealing with messages, whether it's incoming or outgoing.
Okay. So that would be incoming or outgoing from Ashley Benefield's phone.
Correct.
All right. And then the next column?
It's whether or not that data transaction has an attachment.
Okay. And then the next column?
It's the date.
And the next?
And it says time, but it also has the date and the time in the correct time code and time zone.
Okay. You said correct time zone. Can you explain that real quick?
So if you see UTC -4, UTC is what's considered standard time for world clocks. The time where the prime meridian is in the world, you subtract from that and you come up with a time code or the time zone that you're in. We are currently in -4. We're technically -5, but because daylight savings times, we actually subtract -4.
Okay. So does your software do that automatically?
Yes.
Okay. So when it says at the first line, it says 8:20.02, and that says UTC -4, that is the current Florida Bradenton time.
Correct.
Okay. And then the next column, and I made it bigger on the screen if it's easier for you to see.
I can see it
Okay.
fine here.
It's like also
the party
behind
is
him. He's got to turn.
The people that are a part of the actual message.
Okay. And are these the labels, the names that are entered into Ashley Benefield's phone?
Correct.
Okay. And the next column?
The description, well, in this case, the first one is blank, but ultimately it will have the body of a text message. Sometimes it'll be empty depending on the nature of it, but that's where the body of the text message would be.
Okay. So the next column?
The source is just the software's way of saying if it was a native message or if it was taken with a third-party application.
Okay. And the next column?
The attachment is the actual file itself and the file name.
And then the last column?
The source file information has a lot of metadata where that file actually exists and the file paths and size. And if you look at the table, all this information comes from databases and it explains where or what table the database that this message or this data lies.
Okay. So let me move it back over. So this after we get through this explanation, we'll move much faster. But the first message is what? If you could just explain to us what that is.
Item number 1 is listed as a message. It's an incoming message with an attachment, and it appears there's no body to it. In other words, there's no actually text string. It's just the actual attachment itself.
And who is it from and who is it to?
It's from Doug to, I'm just going to say the name that's on the actual.
That's fine.
It says Ashley Christina.
Okay. And is this the attachment?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could just read for the record what that says.
It says, am I now trying to win the favor and approval of men or of God? Or am I seeking to please someone? If I were still trying to be popular with men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ.
So something that we're going to see over the next few or several minutes rather of testimony from this witness is a lot of Bible verses being sent to Ashley from Doug. Now, what's interesting about this is that a lot of people have said, and again, drawing from my own experiences in being in a similar power dynamic with my former mentor, he would also do a lot of the same things, a lot of the same tactics that Doug would use with Ashley, sending me Bible verses, even though personally for me, I am not a religious person. I don't identify as that. I would have conversations with him about it, about how it made me uncomfortable at times. So I could see it being as a manipulation tactic, a way to utilize religion to I don't know, I guess kind of shame her or guilt her in a way. And now looking at it from like a bird's eye view, you might be saying, oh, well, that's nice. And, it seems like Ashley and Doug did have a deeply rooted belief in religion. So I could also see from that perspective, maybe this is something that he did during the better parts of their relationship when they first started speaking. I mean, it was a real whirlwind romance, 13 days of knowing each other. I don't know if he was sending her Bible verses every single day at the same time, every single morning. But again, I know I also have friends who send my father-in-law, they send him my wife Bible verses to send to her father, my father-in-law, and he likes that, and they do that once a day. I don't see that as a manipulation tactic, so I could see it kind of going both ways, but it does seem a little bit strange, the specific Bible verses that he is sending to her, not just like love and hope and faith. It seems very intentional, the specific verses that he's picking. But you guys let me know what you think. I just know, again, drawing from my own experiences, I have literally experienced the same exact thing. And I for me, it made me feel uncomfortable because I don't consider myself a religious person. That's just me. And when you try and voice that specific opinion to somebody who's just so gung-ho about shoving things down your throat, and using it in a way to kind of trap you or shame you, it can be overwhelming. But again, that's just my opinion. For Ashley, maybe she looked forward to this. Maybe she wanted Doug to send her this, but I'm leaning towards probably no. And not because she's not a religious person or she doesn't like, again, receiving inspirational quotes or Bible verses. I'm not saying that at all. But again, pay attention to the specific verses that he does, that he chooses to send her. And I think it's pretty telling. And at what time he's sending these Bible verses to her over text message.
And then the next message is what?
Number 2 appears to be an outgoing message. It's from Ashley Christina to Doug Benefield.
And how much later than the first message is that?
About 2 hours, it appears.
Okay. And so from Ashley to Doug, and what is it?
The description says loved an image.
Okay. So she loved the image from before.
Correct. That's more of an action than actual writing something out.
Okay. She didn't type loved image.
No.
The phone is saying that she hit some button.
Correct.
To love the image. All right. And then the next message is from right about the same time. And that says what?
Same time that says good morning. There's another little icon after it, but it just didn't come out on here.
Okay. And then if you could just continue to read.
The next message. Number
Right,
four?
the next
Okay.
message. If you could just say what time,
Okay.
To and from, and what the message is.
So the next message sent around the same time, 10:36 a.m. It's from Doug to Ashley Christina. It says good morning with a few emojis. Then the next message after that, there's appears to be an attachment, and that's at 11:43 from Doug to Ashley Christina.
And what is the message right after that? Oh, I just went too far. Right after the attachment, I'm sorry.
Right after the attachment,
Yes.
it would be number 6. It's a message at 9:20, 11:43 from Doug to Ashley, and it says "Run, baby, run" with a few emojis.
Okay. And so now I'll just play the attachment. Okay. So Doug says, "Run, baby, run" to Ashley. And then what does she do?
That would be number 7. It's a instant message right after. It's at 12:16, and it just says "laughed at a movie."
Okay. And if you can just keep reading.
Number 8 would be an outgoing message. It's from Ashley to Doug. That's on the same date at 12:16 p.m. It's just a few emojis. They appear to be laughing emojis.
And you don't have to mention the times right now until it switches a large
Okay.
time span. So go ahead.
The next would be an incoming message from Doug to Ashley asking "ready to rock and roll." The next is from Ashley to Doug. "Give me a few LOL. Trying to round up the cats. It's like trying to teach a ballet to squirrels." The next is an incoming message from Doug to Ashley. Says "ha" with exclamation points. The next is
And we've established that it's all either from Doug to Ashley or Ashley to Doug.
Correct.
So if you can just say who's speaking and then the message from this point.
number 12.
Okay, so this is all on 9/20. Remember that Doug's shooting occurred, I believe, on the 27th. So this is one full week before. And 10 days or so before that alleged hearing was going to take place with Dr. Broder's report. That was allegedly going to be the focus of the hearing. Thoughts on that later. But I mean, if you just notice the pattern, I mean, I guess this is only from Doug's extraction, his phone extraction, so it would make sense that we're reading all the from, but it's a lot of messages. It's a lot of messages in like a very, very short period of time. This is all in the same day too. Like this isn't spread out over the course of several days. This is all one day. So again, just pay attention to like what he's saying, how Ashley's responding, what he's not saying, um, which I also find interesting too. And again, yeah, how Ashley is responding to his text messages.
From Doug, he says "that's funny." After that, it's from Doug. It says he's liked "give me a few." It's basically liking a previous text message and it just repeats.
Okay.
The next is an outgoing from Ashley. It says "OMG, I'm exhausted, LOL." The next is also from Ashley. "You can come over now."
Now, I didn't ask you about the color coding on this, but what do the colors mean?
It was just to make it easier to read which one was outgoing, and on all the outgoings, which is Ashley's phone, are Ashley's phone, and the incoming is the other color.
And so the outgoing.
Okay, so it's of both. It's of both, but it seems like Doug is the one who's kind of like initiating and continuing the conversation. Whereas I feel like Ashley is being a little bit shorter. She's liking hurting things instead of like writing out full sentences. Just reacting to certain messages that he's saying, giving a thumbs up. So for me, that indicates a couple of things that maybe she's trying to just keep a soft boundary between him and her, not give him any extra fuel to run with, thinking that, oh, like I don't want to lead him on, but at the same time, I don't want to think that I don't want him to think I'm ignoring him because I don't know if that's going to be worse. So again, drawing from my own personal experiences, I can definitely relate to that. And call me biased if you want to, but that's my opinion. And at the end of the day, it's my channel. And if you don't agree with my opinions, that's totally fine and fair. You can drop a comment as long as you keep it respectful in the comment section below. But for me, it seems like Ashley is And I'd be curious to see her other text messages with people that, like, she does like to engage with, right? Like friends, family. How is her communication different? How does she speak to her friends, her family, even other boyfriends? How would she communicate with them? Would it be in a similar kind of speech pattern over text? Is she just a short, because I know a lot of people who are very short in their text messages and it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but he definitely seems way more animated in his text messages and just looking to continue the conversation, get her to continue talking to him. But again, that's just what I'm seeing.
These are what color?
The outgoings are the blue-gray.
Okay. Or the
I'm sorry, blue-gray. The outgoing is the orange.
orange. Okay. So if Ashley's speaking, it's orange. If Doug's speaking, it's gray.
Correct.
Okay. So I believe we ended it. OMG, I'm exhausted. LOL. Go ahead.
I believe I had stated the outgoing message. You can come over now. Number 16 from Doug. Hot. Need to video the rodeo. Okay, headed that way. From Ashley, she responds. She liked what he had said earlier and just repeats. Incoming from Doug. I'm walking around to back. The response. I could let you in the front, or which, and then adds to that whichever. He responds. Okay, front good. She responds with a thumbs up. He responds, me and XS boxes arrived. She responds, LOL. He responds with a message that includes an attachment without a body. Then there's a call log, which is number 26. It's an outgoing call log to Doug for, I believe, 11 seconds.
Okay. And then let me scroll down on here. After the phone call, what happens? Oh, let me back up just a second.
It's also too, like, I would love to see a comparison, like direct comparison of their communication before all of this, like leading up to this date, before the custody battle, before she moved to Florida, any of that. Even just like in that 2-week window of when they first met, how they spoke to each other, because there was a lot of babies and I miss yous. And and again, the state is trying to prove, oh, they're getting along, they're reconciling. But for me, it feels very like, again, just trying to keep him at an arm's length and just getting along, just trying to get along, being civil, not trying to cause any trouble, just trying to say, okay, cool, like very matter of factly. Like it lacks a lot of emotional depth, in my opinion. But I would love to, again, just thinking back to their earlier conversations when they first got together, and they were head over heels and just always, like, as Eva Benefield described Douglas's daughter, just how in love they seemed to be, and how attached they were, infatuated with each other that they were, and how they're communicating now. It definitely is very telling, and it seems like, again, Doug is the one who's trying to continue the conversation.
What time was that phone call?
Same date, 9/27/24 in the evening.
And then at 8:58 in the evening, that next entry, what is it?
It is a message from Doug. It says, good night, sweetie, theta waves, with a couple emojis. I'll be done by 1 tomorrow and plan on joining the party. And then there's an outgoing, and then again, another action of just loving that previous text message. And then there was a response at 9:23 that says, good night, with a couple emojis. You sure you want to come hang out with the slum, ? And 9:23, he responds, yep, be smeshin' at the slummin'. 9:24, there was again an action of laughed at the previous message.
Okay, so that was at 9:24 p.m. and it looks like the next entry is at 7:36 a.m.
Correct.
And what is that?
That is believed to be an attachment without a body. It's a long string of characters, JPEG image.
And that came from Doug or to Doug?
That was from Doug.
And I'm going to display the attachment. You don't have to read all of this, but what is this?
Just another Bible verse.
I'll read it out for you guys. There is no fear in love. Dread does not exist. But perfect, complete, full-grown love drives out fear, because fear involves the expectation of divine punishment. So the one who is afraid of God's judgment is not perfected in love, has not grown into a sufficient understanding of God's love. I mean, I don't know how you guys interpret that, but it feels oddly specific. Like, oh my God, you're just afraid to love me. And just reading again, there is no fear in love. Dread does not exist. But perfect, complete, full-grown love drives out fear, because fear involves the expectation of divine punishment. So the one who is afraid of God's judgment is not perfected in love, has not grown into a sufficient understanding of God's love. So like it's just a very interesting verse to share. Like, is he trying to say you're afraid? You're afraid of loving me because you're afraid of God's judgment? Like it I don't know, it almost feels like kind of like a narcissistic, like are you guys getting that? Because like I just feel like that's I know they talked a little bit of like Doug's ego and like they get into that a little bit with like some of the psychologists who came on and testified as well too and his ego, but this just feels I don't know, for me it reeks of narcissism. Like you're just not ready to love me like yet. But when you do, you won't be afraid of God. Like it just almost feels like he's comparing himself like almost like godlike. I don't know. That's just the way it feels to me. Um really interesting. Really interesting Bible verse.
So after the Bible verse, what is the next thing that happens?
She appears that she loves the image and then responds with good morning. He responds back with good morning with several emojis, and hours later responds with or says headed that way in about 30 minutes.
So that's approximately 3 hours later. He says headed that way in about 30 minutes.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
There's a response from Ashley that says, oh, hey, wow, you done for the day? Don't rush because of us. We're out for a walk now. Not in a rush to get started today. LOL. We'll have to round up the cats when we get home anyway.
So that's what Ashley said. She said, "Don't rush because of us. We're out for a walk now, not in a rush to get started today." So like that for me feels kind of like I don't really want to even see you. Like that's how I read it. That's how I read it. You know, we're out for a walk. I'm not really ready to get started into all of this. So it seems like she's trying to push off getting him to come over. So then he says, "Oh, nice, a little breezy, which helps. Getting early start so can finish up early to come over and be with y'all and play with Emerson. That's their daughter. Free y'all up some. Just ping when good to head over." So like he's still flipping it, even though for me this is like it feels like a subtle way of saying like, "Oh, we're not really in a rush," like to get started, like just trying to push it off as much as possible.
There's a response from Doug. Oh, nice, a little breezy, which helps. Getting early start so can finish up early to come over and be with y'all and play W Emerson, typically shorthand for with Emerson. Free y'all up some. Just ping when good to head over. And Ashley responds with a like of that previous message, and then responds with will do, and also adds in a new text message, want to grab a can opener at Publix on your way over? ? LOL. I of course packed the one we had. He responds, ha, too funny. Yep, we'll get one. She responds, thank you, trying to get the cats, LOL. And after that, there's an incoming message, appears to be an attachment as well. And that was it.
Go ahead. Some of these attachments don't open on this computer. Can you explain kind of why that is?
I think that one of the previous videos that you had, sometimes it's a codec issue. The files are actually not necessarily embedded in the actual spreadsheet itself, but I can take this same file and bring it over to another computer and it might open. It just depends. It depends on the computer how it's set up to open that particular file.
Okay. So after the attachment, I'm trying to slide this back over. Let's see. Let me try to open this. Okay, so this is one that will not open. So I slid it back over. If you could tell us again, starting at 46, I believe it is.
Well, after that attachment, it's 45.
Or 45, sorry.
And it's an incoming, says from Doug in the crazy loop at Gay, G-A-Y-E. And it's probably a misspelling because he corrected himself and put gate in the next message. There is a call log that has 0.
Because remember, folks, and I honestly, like, it took me like a few days of testimony to put 2 and 2 together that Ashley's mom, who Ashley was living with, lived in a gated community. So also interesting. And there was testimony today that came out about that as well, without spoiling things too much.
0 seconds to it at 3:17, and then an incoming message walking around back, and then
So the walking around back is approximately what time?
3 o'clock in the afternoon,
And then-
3:21,
The next message is approximately what time?
9 o'clock at night.
And that message is?
Good night. And she responds at 9:22 with good night and looks like a sleeping emoji.
And the next communication?
The next would be an incoming message from Doug to Ashley. Appears to be an attachment of some type of JPEG image.
And you don't have to read this, but what is it?
It's another Bible verse.
Okay, so we will read this one. I don't know what verse this is from because I can't see, but we'll read it. For this reason, I am telling you, whatever things you ask for in prayer in accordance with God's will, believe with confident trust that you have received them and they will be given to you. So once again, for this reason, I am telling you, whatever things you ask for in prayer in accordance with God's will, believe with confident trust that you have received them and they will be given to you. So that is the next Bible verse that he has sent to Ashley. I'm not sure what this is from. If any of you guys know what verse this is from. Oh, Isaiah something.
I believe we're on, after that attachment, we're on 52.
Yes.
It is an incoming message from Doug. It says, good morning with some emojis. Hope you slept okay. She responded at 9:28. Loved the image, or loved an image, and also an additional good morning. Doug then emphasized the good morning, just another action that he took on a previous message. And the next communication was at 11 o'clock a.m. with a wave emoji, looks like. And at 11:22, he responds again with how's morning. She responds with also a wave emoji at 11:26, then says, good, the scramble to get all the loose ends tied up, LOL. He responds, no kidding, I'm done. Around 1, we'll head that way. Been going since like 3 a.m., LOL. She responds, OMG, 3, why is that? He responds, just to get work done so can pack. Love mornings, all quiet. She responds, okay then. He responds, Spark is best friend, LOL. She laughed, another action for that message. And another response from Doug, finished up here, yay, headed that way.
And what time was that?
That was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 1:17.
And then after that?
Or 1:19, she says, go take your time, no rush in, not in a rush today.
See how she's saying that again? Not in a rush today. Take your time. Like for me, that feels like her trying to, like be nice, be respectful, but also too like, no, I don't need to see you right now. Like, please take your sweet old time because I really don't actually want to see you. And again, notice that he's the one who's constantly initiating the conversations. He's the one who continues them. Like a lot of times she'll just end it with something very short by saying, ha, okay, or like laughing or liking something. And that for me feels like the end of a conversation because I know I do that. I don't know how you guys are with texting. I'm also a terrible texter, but I know when I'm talking to somebody and I'm running out of things to talk about with them, or we're just at the end of the conversation. Maybe I'm talking to my sister and we're just putting together plans. I'll just do a like button and there's no need to continue the conversation unless there's a genuine want or need to. And a lot of these instances, it feels like Doug just wants to continue talking to her, just to continue talking to her, which again, for me is kind of goes along with me leaning towards him being manipulative. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, she's stringing him along. Like she shouldn't be texting him at all or back. She's the mother of his child. And like based on everything that went on in family court in regards to the custody of their child, like she can't just not answer him. Like she has to, because then he can pull like, oh, you're withholding my child from me, even though he's not even talking about this kid, which is also wild to me. Because notice how many times he doesn't ask about his daughter, ask if she needs anything. It's always about Ashley. It's always about Ashley, never once about the kid, which is really interesting to me. Granted, I don't have a kid, but I would think that if I'm co-parenting with my ex, that would probably be the main topic of conversation and less good morning and sending Bible verses. And yeah, you could argue, well, he wants to get back together with her and it seems like she's stringing him along, but I don't really read this as her stringing him along at all. It seems like her just trying to get along with him and just being nice and just trying to keep everything peaceful so that they don't have to go through court again. They don't have to go through all this headache and she can just move on with her life. And maybe there is a world where they could successfully co-parent together despite everything that happened. So that's the way I'm reading it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below.
And at 1:20, a response LOL with emoji. Think we all are getting pooped from the efforts. She responds with liked a previous message and it just repeats. There's also a laughed at LOL, again laughing at a previous message. Then another message at 1:36 says, can you think of anything we need at Lowe's or anywhere? Then there's actual call log at 1:42 that lasted about 49 seconds. And that was from Doug too, actually. And then at 3:30, there's a message from Doug, headed that way in a few minutes. I'd nothing need. And a message from Ashley, alrighty, we are just out for a walk, still can't think of anything needed at the moment. There's an action liked already, and the message repeats from a previous message. Doing front gate, I'm assuming circle, that's CIRCL, and a call log from Doug to Ashley with 0 seconds. Incoming from Doug, I'm here. And it looks like another call log for about 20 seconds.
And that's about, I'm sorry to interrupt, that's about what time?
That was at 3:56 in the afternoon.
And the next message is at about what time?
9:26
I
p.m.
wish we knew, like, is this still the 20th? Like, what date is this? Because that's the other thing. It's getting, like, totally cut off from here. And obviously the jury can see the time and the date, and they'll get the spreadsheet as well, too, when they're going through jury deliberations. But, just not to have that read out loud, too. Like, in the beginning, we could see, okay, like, this is the 20th, but it would be nice to know, is this the same date? Is this a different date? I'm assuming it's a different date because they're saying good night, good morning, good night, good morning. But I would like to know what date this is. I mean, I know it's all leading up pretty much from the 20th to the day of the incident, the 27th. But
p.m. It's a message from Ashley Christina to Doug. It says good night with an emoji. And then after that, Doug responds, good night, precious girls. And after that, Ashley, again, an action of loving that previous.
and again, notice how she doesn't respond back. She just hearts it. She doesn't say good night, my prince, or good night, my love. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Like, so for me, and also being somebody too who has been in sensual relationships where I have been the person stringing somebody along, I know how that ends. I know how somebody operates on that end when you're trying to intentionally string somebody along. And this for me just feels very much like an end to a conversation. Or when you're talking to somebody who's not interested in you like that. This is the same exact text pattern. And if you're somebody who doesn't see that, then you probably haven't been in that situation. And good for you. I'm happy to hear that you've only spoken to people who are interested in you and or actually want to talk to you. But yeah, I've been on both ends, stringing people along, which was, terrible. I shouldn't have done that, but you're young, stupid, whatever. And also being the person on the other side, pining after somebody and wanting to get their attention, trying to start a conversation, them just totally like brick walling you and like not giving anything back. So again, I don't see how this is like misleading. I don't see how this is stringing him along by any means. She's not saying I love you. She's not calling him baby. She's not saying I can't wait to see you. He's the one who's saying good night, precious girls. Every morning, good morning. She's not initiating anything.
This response. And the next.
Another thing too to call out, and I'm sorry I keep stopping this, but again, it's just personal experiences, right? Personal experiences draw certain things. But the fact that she's not accepting his, like, and I don't want to say gifts, but when he asks if she needs anything, her saying, no, I don't need anything. That for me is also her putting up a boundary too. Because again, me drawing from my own experiences, the more you let them in, the more you let them get you things and buy you things, that's a manipulation tactic. That's a manipulation tactic. That is a way for them to have one over you and say, yes, you owe me for this because look how well I treated you. I got you all these things. I took care of you. I did this. And then you get in your head and you're like, oh my God, maybe they're not a terrible guy. Maybe they're not a terrible human being. That's manipulation. But again, that's my opinion that I'm drawing from my own personal experiences with someone who is exactly or at least was exactly how Doug Benefield appears
Several
from the
messages
evidence.
appear to be related to attachments.
Okay. So the next attachment I'll put up. Who were these attachments sent from?
These were from Doug to Ashley Christina.
Not from Ashley.
And then in the middle of this, so it would be, I'm not getting the lines correct, but I think it's line 87 maybe, at 9:29:35.
9:29:35 is line 86,
Okay.
and that's another action of loving an image.
And there's one more attachment, I believe. Possibly one more after that. Two. So all of these attachments were sent from Doug's phone to Ashley's phone.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's a series of responses from Ashley. Can you tell me what those are?
It's the previous action that we've referenced where she physically takes an, it's not word that she's typing, it's just physically within the operating system of iOS allows you to take an action on an image. In this case, she loved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
6 images.
Okay. Let me get it back centered again.
Somebody else in, I think it was in Melanie Little's stream when she was going through, I think, coverage on this day as well too. I know a couple of you guys also follow Melanie Little, love her coverage, especially on the Karen Reed case, but this case as well too, where somebody brought up a really good point of how Doug would get angry or upset with Ashley if she didn't like react to his messages via like an emoji or via, I guess, a reaction, because that was a way for her to prove that she loved him or cared about him. So I don't know if that also plays into it. So her acknowledging he sent a message, her reacting to the message, even though if she doesn't want to answer it. And I feel like for her, it's like, okay, well, I'll give him a little bit in terms of I'll react to his message. But if I also send him messages back and forth, the conversation's never going to stop and he's not going to get the hint. And I think this is a really good way for her, or at least this is a way that I know I've used, is trying to put up boundaries with somebody and just end the conversation or just be as short as possible by reacting to it. Now, based on who we have learned about the jurors, it seems like they're all probably around like 40s and above. So I don't know how, again, I don't want to say it like hip like the cool kids, because I'm not a cool kid, and there are things that the kids say these days that I just don't like. Uh Something about Ohio, like I'm living Ohio, something weird like that the kids are saying. But anyways, I digress because now I'm showing my. But again, this might be. It seems like this is a slightly older, at least older than Ashley, older generation that might not be used to like certain, I guess, means of communication through iPhone and text messages and reacting, especially because I think that's only been like not a recent iOS update, but over the last like several years. So certainly not when the iPhone first came to play. But so I think it's a good explanation of what it is and what it means, but under having that understanding and that context of how to use those things, like it might be interpreted different to a juror. Again, somebody who's a little bit older, who's not as like into texting, maybe they have a phone, they FaceTime their grandkids, this, that, and the third, right? And they don't know how anything else works, right? You have to show your parents how to use your cell phone, but um so they might interpret it as like, oh, she's hearting it, so that must mean that she's receptive of these messages, and she's okay with it, she's allowing this to happen. So I could see that perspective coming from a juror's mind, but from somebody who is of a slightly younger generation that grew up with this technology, like what certain things mean, like K dot. If you get K dotted like that, you messed up. You did something wrong. But again, or if you're just getting okay, one K, one Y, or even just an O and a K, you're done. You're done. You did something wrong. Like now you gotta go. Like you're gonna be sleeping on the couch tonight. That's what that means, at least in my generation. So I think understanding how people use this and how it's interpreted, because again, people could be looking at it all different kinds of ways. So I think it's deeply fascinating the way that she's reacting, because the way I interpreted it as her putting up boundaries, but somebody on the juror, or even you guys too, might see it as, well, no, she seems receptive to it. Her hearting it, why would she heart it if she didn't like it, you know? So, or even just a thumbs up for me, that's like, oh God, what did I do? So, context is everything.
So after she loved the images, there's an entry where she types a message. What is
Yes.
that?
That's at 9:31 at night. She responds, "All these are sweet, thank you." And he responds with an action that he loved the previous message, and then responds with y'all rock my world with a heart emoji. And she responds again with an action of loving that previous message, and with it's a very small emoji, hard to tell what it is after the action.
And then what's the next entry?
The next is an instant. There's a message with an attachment, and that's from Doug to Ashley at 6:47 in the morning.
I'm going to pull up the attachment. And again, what is that?
Appears to be another Bible verse.
And if you can continue.
So after there's a message
that
from
one
Doug,
say?
it says good morning with emojis, and then also an additional message at 9:28. It says got an email from Stephanie after she talked to Faith. Sends order to meet.
Okay, so Stephanie, meaning Stephanie Murphy, whose testimony we went through in my last video. Again, I will link that in the description below. And then Faith Brown, who we are going to hear from. I believe that's when the defense starts their case. So not this day, but the next day. And then so that's who Faith Brown is. She's Ashley Benefield's attorney. So that's what they're
Mediate will
talking
meet
about.
for 1 hour tomorrow to stop court next week. You dismissed injunction. We sign joint stipulation to dismiss dissolutions and hold until Moreland signs order for report. As soon as she signs order, we file dismissal, and we're done. Looks like praying hands emoji and a heart. And then there's an additional message after that. And we have joint session with Dr. Q Friday to wrap up our adventure in Florida, FL, and leave with understanding of double knots and red-blue inversion. After that, there's an action by Ashley Christina that said, love it.
So he's talking about, it looks like they were filing to dismiss the I guess this was like in regards to the filing for divorce, because I know he did file for divorce at some point. So I guess this is what he's specifically referring to. They have an appointment with Dr. Quintel, who's again testimony we heard from my last video, and then them moving to talking about moving to Maryland.
An image, and it continues with a good morning. And there's an emphasis by Doug of good morning. She Ashley Christina responds, oh, okay, I'll reach out to Faith to follow up on all the above with a thumbs up. Doug takes an action about and liking that previous image, and then says, and we're done. Again, preparing hands emoji, and also responds, and all in first 10 days of Jewish New Year, LOL. It continues with an action of laughed at the previous message. And then at 9:57, Doug responds, you gotta laugh. September 18th was first date of Jewish New Year, 3 years to date of your Odyssey starting day of ballet launch, Rosh Hashanah, the first of the Jewish days of all. We can call our Odyssey the days of all, LOL. At 10:13, there's an incoming message, says from Doug, so perfect outside. It's like a sun emoji. Ashley responds with an action for those previous messages, which just repeats, and then writes, oh yay, we should do Selby today. He responds, oh yes, with multiple M's and yum. She responds with a few emojis. He emphasized the emojis, and then adds, Stephanie just sent Faith joint dismissal of everything except injunction, which Faith has to do, just one pager, and also responds, what time thinking Selby? Actually, Christina responds with the action of liking it, and then says, maybe 1:30ish. I'll text you when we're headed that way with a thumbs up. He responds, or Doug responds, okay, I can come pick you up too. Then adds more time with my baby. Then adds mediation tomorrow by Zoom 10:30 and be quick.
So who's the baby? Is he talking about? I think he's talking about Ashley. I don't think he's talking about Emerson, their daughter. Because he called Emerson by Emerson. Not that like he doesn't call her baby. I don't know what he calls his kids or what he called his kids, but I don't know. Who do you think he's talking about? I think he's talking about Ashley here, but before he called her precious girls. Notice how she also doesn't like more time with my baby. She likes mediation tomorrow. That's the one she likes. These are all 3 separate messages. So, again, how would you interpret that?
Ashley responds with the action of liking that, then added, sorry, just looking at my phone. You don't need to drive all the app back to LWR to get us if you are already downtown. But if you want to, that's fine. Just let me know either way. Doug responds, I'm at apartment. Adds, so pretty, enjoying cool area, finally to work, LOL. The next message is an attachment with no body.
From Doug.
That is from Doug to Ashley Christina.
Another Bible. Oh, no. I guess that's at the gated community?
Just close that. Let me open it again.
Or is that? Oh, no. He said at
And what number
apartment,
were
so
we
I
on?
guess
132,
it's
that was the
his
attachment.
apartment. And, like, somebody brought up a really good point. I don't know if I said this to you, but, like, where the heck is Eva in all of this? Like, is she still in South Carolina, or did she move? She didn't move down with him, right? Like, she was in South Carolina during all of this while he's, or is he going back and forth? I don't really, that was always unclear to me. Do you guys have a little bit more clarity in terms of where Eva might have been during all this? Because she was only about, what, 15 when Ashley shot Doug? So, I mean, legally, she's not an adult. And as we know, her mother, her biological mother, had passed. Not that she doesn't have aunts or uncles or cousins. I think she also has a half siblings. So was she staying with them? Was she just by herself? I mean, obviously you're 15, you could probably take care of yourself at least for a couple of days. But I mean, you're only 15. It's not like you're 18 or 20. So I'm just curious, where is Eva during all of this? And like, did Doug? I mean, I think Eva did know he was moving to Maryland, but I also want to know, like, did he explain that to her? Did she even know any of the stuff that was going on? I'm so curious. I don't think she knew about the injunction in South Carolina.
Okay. So after the attachment, what's the next communication?
It's a message from Doug to Ashley Christina. I'll just head your way at 1:30. Ashley Christina responds, hot, nice, okay, just getting our things together now. Maybe head over in like 10 minutes. 10 MIM. Doug responds, okay. And then after that appears to be an email from Doug to Ashley.
Okay. And after that?
After that
Was that sent through the text?
incoming
or was
message
that
from Doug.
separate?
Do you want to get together tonight or in the morning before mediation and unify the instructions for Faith and Stephanie? Think we are going to need to keep involved until this is done or will drag out. She responds, hot, okay, thumbs up. He responds, thumbs up. Prefer tonight, maybe run over Pandera or in AM, ? And she responds, sure, can do Panera tonight.
Okay, so I want to back up a little bit.
Panera
We were
bread.
talking about the entry that was the email before that. Does it have the content of the email in this spreadsheet?
It appears there's quite a bit of metadata involved, but the actual content from what I'm looking at is not actually in there.
Okay, does it say any names associated with the metadata?
There's an email address of Stephanie Murphy. It's got at murphylawsarasota.com. There's an email address related to Doug Benefield. And there's, I believe those are the 2 names that I see that are associated.
Okay. So we left off at sure can do Panera tonight.
Yes. And adds
Yeah, and it's
8
like,
question mark.
what are the dates?
She responds with a thumbs up. And that was at 7:27 p.m. And she responds with at 9:55 p.m. with a good night and a sleeping emoji. And he responds also with a good night with another emoji. He adds sweet dreams and then also sends an attachment. Correction, the sweet dreams was the last one at 9:56 p.m. The attachment I just referenced was actually 7 o'clock in the morning.
Again,
the next day.
from
Okay, so
all
next
from
day,
Doug.
clicking on that attachment.
All from Doug,
And what is
not from
that?
Ashley. She's
It
not
looks up here
saying
a
you.
Bible verse.
Doesn't even
And
answer.
What are the messages after that?
All right, so attachment after that, there's a good morning with a few emojis. If you want to, if you want, you can come over here for Zoom. And adds, we can grab bagel in CHI. It's 10 a.m. BT. And by the way, BTW is short. And then there's a phone call at 9 o'clock, 9:07.
CHI, I know a lot of people are like, what is that? So I think he's saying chai. I think he just spelled it wrong. Chai is CHAI, chai tea, which is interesting. Tea. Ashley likes to drink tea. Doug bought Ashley a tea set for her birthday, right? That she alleged had alleged had poison in it. So interesting. And this is like after that, after like those allegations and all of that. Do you really think she's going to want to drink tea? If she really believes you were trying to poison her, do you really think she's going to want to get tea from you? Probably not. Probably not.
No seconds. There's a 151. It says there's an incoming message with nobody. And then after that, there's an incoming message with an attachment that appears to be related to connection to a Zoom meeting, possibly. And then
I'm going to click on that attachment and see if it will come up. It's one of those that will not come up. So go ahead.
Didn't you like
the
test
next
it out?
after that appears to be an ID number and a password typically associated with Zoom meetings, and then a phone call with no seconds. And then 9:38 it continues where Ashley Christina loved an image, then liked the message. It's 10 a.m. by the way, and then added, "Ha, oh man, okay, thanks for the heads up." He responded by liking that, and then added, "Set up here if easier for you." And she responded, "That's okay. I guess I should brush my hair and change out my PJs. LOL. I think I can just do it from my phone." He responds, "LOL, you can." She liked LOL, you can, and then added, "Quick and easy, LOL."
And what was the time difference between the like of LOL you can and the quick and easy? Approximately.
About 15, 20 minutes.
Okay. And then what was the next entry after the quick and easy?
So it was another action by Doug for that quick and easy, and then added, "So nice to experience quick and easy. Finally, LOL." Then adds, "Smashing good." Then adds, "PS, you looked great for just rolling out of couch. LOL," and added an emoji. He added, "I'm
So
working
many
on brief,
text
head over soon
messages.
as."
To so many freaking text messages. And like, notice how he's like, oh, you could come over here and Zoom. And if she was, I feel like if she was leading him on, she would go. Or say, like, yeah, like, I'll totally come. Or like, maybe I'll come. But that's not what she said. She said, no, I think I'm going to probably just like I roll out of bed and get myself together. And I'll just do it from home. That doesn't really sound like somebody who wants to like be around this person. Like, if you're really into somebody or you're like, you want to get back together with them, like, you're going to make an effort. You're not just going to roll out of bed and like just go over there and like not give a crap what you're wearing or what you look like. You're going to take the extra 30 minutes to put in all the stops. No matter where you stand with your ex, you know, if you want to get back together. But here, I feel like she's really trying to, like, downplay everything, and he's like, "Oh, but you look so good, like, even for somebody just rolling out of bed and in your pajamas," and she's like, "Yeah, huh? Okay." Like, that's at least how I'm reading it, but you guys let me know what you think.
Get to stopping point like 1. She responds with the action of loving the previous message, or one of the previous messages. "So nice to experience quick and easy." Laughed at also the PJ, the PS, "Looking great" comment. And then added, "Ha, thanks. Figured I should put a clean shirt on even if I had PJs on the bottom half. LOL." She adds, "And okay, just let me know as you're finishing up." He adds, "Just to ponder while I finish up, thinking about getting all the cars up here, and I thought was to ship the Cherokee up there by transport, which is 900, and either tow my truck or tow to your Jetta. The U-Haul plus the car trailer is about 1,000. That's for the biggest truck, which gives us plenty of room. The option is another pod and tow one of the cars behind my truck. Overall price about the same. U-Haul, more flexibility, like taking things straight to storage." She responds, "Okay, things to think about. Maybe best to have you drive the U-Haul and tow your truck behind. Mom and cats will go in the Jeep and I'll drive with Emerson in my car." She added, "LOL, the Beverly Hill." He added, "LOL, the Beverly Hillbillies, coming from them slums. Forget about cat courier requirements, LOL." She laughed at the Beverly Hillbillies comment, added LOL, then added, I believe, several cat emojis. He laughed at the emojis, then added, "Headed over shortly, brain approaching short circuit," She added, ha, okay, well, give me a bit longer finishing up mom's closets now so I can get the cats locked up. He added, he liked the previous message. And then there's a outgoing phone call to Doug for 38 seconds. Outgoing message from Christina says, headed that way. He responds, or he took the action of liking it. Added, we done good, LOL. We have Dr. Q at 10:30. Good night with an emoji.
Okay. So the light headed that way was at what time?
That was at 2:00 in the afternoon.
And then the good night was at what time?
It's at 8:27
Okay.
at night. Saw two of them. Apologize.
And then after the good night.
After good night, there's an outgoing indeed, LOL, good night from Ashley. And then after that, there is an attachment at 5:45 in the morning from Doug.
Okay. And I'll put on the attachment. What is that?
Another Bible verse.
And the next entry.
Another Bible verse that we can't read.
Appears to be another attachment roughly 15 minutes later.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Yes, we
If you could
can.
read what this says.
Live a life filled with love. And
Live a life filled with love.
Ephesians, it looks like
Another Bible verse, Ephesians 5:2.
5:2.
At 9:26,
So I mean, like something like that feels like less, I don't know, like icky to me. But the other Bible verses seemed like oddly specific. So I don't know. That's like more of the Bible verses that like my wife will send to her dad that her friend forwards to her. So that for me feels less like. But it is interesting with the Bible verses. Is this something that was part of their routine when they first got together that he did? Is it something that Dashley likes? I don't know. But he seems to do it every single morning.
there's a message from Doug that says, good morning. Minute later, there's an action of loving an image. Second, loving a minute image. And he responds with Dr. Q's at 10:30. Do you want a CHI? Question mark.
I think that's chai.
Chai. At 9:27, there's a response from Christina that says, good morning. There's a repeated response, a previous message. Dr. Q is at 10:30. Do you want a chai? And then bagel, he added to it. She responds, that's okay. Thank you. If I do that this early in the day, I'll be done for the day. LOL, but thank you. He added, he liked that message. And the next appears to be an attachment.
I mean, that's a very safe answer. I feel like no, I don't want a chai right now because the caffeine will get me all jittery and I'll be done for the rest of the day. So I feel like I could totally interpret it. I could totally see it from that perspective.
From
Especially
Doug
if you think
related to
you
possibly a YouTube video.
poisoning you.
And that was at 9:56 a.m.
And it's another one that won't open. And then the next entry.
At 10:40, 35 a.m. From Doug, are you able to make Dr. Q okay? She responds, yes, LOL, be in a minute. He responds, no rush. He's still not out, LOL. She responds, I know, LOL, waiting for mom to come out so we can swap. There's a message without just a rectangular square there. And then after that, there's 10:42:35. There's an LOL from Doug. There's a phone call. It's
Now the LOL was at 10:42 a.m. And then what's the next entry?
correct. 10:42 a.m. was the LOL.
Like, we don't even
And then
know
the
what
next
date
is at
this is,
5:39
though.
p.m., which is a phone call from Doug, and it with 0 seconds. Then adds after the phone call, Ivy here, and then another phone call for 15 seconds at 5:40 p.m. Then
Your Honor, not to attack Sergeant Keilas because he's been reading for a while, but it's a little tough to follow. I wonder if he could give us the number of the message, so it would be much easier to follow.
that's fair.
And I don't know why, but I think your numbers may be off.
All different from this.
They might be. Can you look?
Ivy here is, well, we're not using the numbers that are built into Excel. I want to
I'm
say
gonna say, wait, what
Ivy here
date
is-
are we on? Okay, this is the 20. So we just went through 5 days of messaging, like back and forth messaging. We started on the 20th when we started going through the texts. Now we're on the 25th. So this is 2 days before, I believe.
well, we're not using the numbers that are built into Excel. I want to say
Okay.
the
That's
numbers
what it is.
are an actual column. So technically, Ivy
Hang on, I'll move
here,
this over. That's what you're looking at.
correct. Ivy
Okay.
here would be 212.
If he gives you that number, are you okay with that?
Can you show it?
Yeah, I think they're talking about these numbers. So
It's
they're
correct.
approaching.
Sure, not a problem.
Thank you. Thanks, Joy.
Of course.
So it is an attachment, a JPEG,
There we go.
and that was at 6:43 a.m.
And that is on the next day, correct? 9/26.
Correct.
And I pulled up the attachment. What is that?
That's like a Bible verse.
Wait,
And then
we
I
want to
pulled up-
read it. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So, I mean, as somebody who, ironically, I grew up Roman Catholic, went to Catholic school, as somebody who no longer identifies specifically with any kind of religion, but I find religion deeply fascinating. So I pulled up I guess it's the entire chapter of Romans 3. And I want to go through it. This is probably some kind of updated version. So, you know how things get kind of twisted and turned. Not every translation is the same, but I want to pull it up and get kind of like a zoomed out full perspective of what this is pulled from. So God's faithfulness. What advantage then is there in being a Jew, or what value is there in circumcision? Oh. Much in every way. First of all, the Jews have been entrusted with the very words of God. What if some were unfaithful? Will their unfaithfulness nullify God's faithfulness? Not all, not at all. Let God be true and every human being a liar. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us. I am using a human argument. Certainly not. If that were so, how could God judge the world? Someone might argue, if my falsehood enhances God's truthfulness and so increases his glory, why am I still condemned as a sinner? So he likes to talk a lot about sinning. And I wonder if that's him trying to project, like, saying, I'm not a bad, I'm just a sinner. I'm just a sinner and I take accountability of my sins. Interesting. Why not say, as some slanderously claim, that we say, let us do evil that good may result? Their condemnation is just. No one is righteous. What shall we conclude then? Do we have any advantage? Not at all. For we have already made the charge that Jews and Gentiles alike are all under the power of sin. As it is written, there is no one righteous, not even one. There is no one who understands. There is no one who seeks God. All have turned away. They have together become worthless. There is no one who does good, not even one. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways, and the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced and the whole world held accountable to God. Therefore, no one will be declared righteous in God's sight by the works of the law. Rather, though the law, we become conscious of our sin. Righteousness through faith. So now we're going to get into the part that had the quote that he sent to Ashley. But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been made known, to which the law and the prophets testify. This righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ, to all who believe. There is no difference between Jew and Gentile, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. That's so interesting to me because it almost feels like he's subliminally saying, I messed up, but you messed up too. Like we're the same. We sin the same. Interesting. And all are justified freely. So yeah, and for all who have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So that is the verse, or that is the Bible verse from this. So just again, reading, these are the lines beforehand. But now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been made known, to which the law and prophets testify. This righteousness is given through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. There is no difference between Jew and Gentile, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So I feel like, yeah, he's saying, you too, girl. And all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Jesus Christ, or Christ Jesus. God presented Christ as a sacrifice of atonement through the shedding of his blood to be received by faith. He did this to demonstrate his righteousness because his forbearance, he had left the sins committed beforehand unpunished. He did it to demonstrate his righteousness at the present time, so as to be just and the ones who justifies those who have faith in Jesus. Where then is boasting? It is excluded because of what law? The law that requires works? No, because of the law that requires faith. For we maintain that a person is justified by faith apart from the works of the law, or is God the God of Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles too? Yes, of Gentiles too, since there is only one God who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through that same faith. Do we then nullify the law by this faith? Not at all. Rather, we uphold. So this is what he sent Ashley. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. Expand. So Paul sums up this section of his letter and the entire gospel in this one famous verse. He compares the two types of lives he has been describing. Those without Christ are slaves to sin. Their work of sinfulness earns a paycheck of death. Now, granted, when the heck is this that he's sending it? Like a day or two before Ashley shoots it? So eerie. So weird. In other words, they earn eternal death, eternal separation from God, no matter how good a person may think they are. Their work can never be good enough. And ultimately, they have only themselves to blame for sinning against God. There is another way, however. Paul has described the possibility that we can become servants of righteousness. So remember, the last one also talked about righteousness and sin by trusting in Christ. This is not something we can do on our own. He wrote in Romans 3:23. So this goes directly with, this is fascinating. And I think he had in Ephesians 1. Oh my God, guy. Oh, I'm going down the Bible rabbit hole. I really am. This is so wild. This is so fascinating to me. I don't know if it's fascinating to you guys, but it's so fascinating to me. And I think he has one also too from Isaiah. He wrote in Romans 3:23. That's literally the last one we read out loud before the Live Laugh Loud one. That all have sinned and fall short of God's glory. Eternal life can only be given. It cannot be earned by human beings. Okay. I feel like, in a way, maybe this is just me, but are we getting Lori and Chad Daybell vibes? I don't know. That's just me. Paul describes eternal life as God's free gift in Christ Jesus our Lord. When we trust in Christ, God gives us credit for Christ's perfect sinless life and accepts the payment of Christ's death for our sin. The result, eternal life with him, sharing in his glory, is given to us as a gift. Paul seems to be asking, which life do you want? So what do you think that means? I mean, that is deeply fascinating to me, and especially because it ties to that other Bible verse that he sent. And I also think he sent in Isaiah 1, and I also think he just sent in Ephesians 1. I don't know if that was the same exact one, but what do you think that means? Wildly interesting. Wildly interesting. He's constantly talking about righteousness, sin. Especially with that, you could pick two paths. So I wonder if he's saying, if you choose me, this is the path to righteousness. That's just my loose interpretation, but what do you think?
A Bible verse. After the attachment at 2:31, Doug sends good morning. 2:32, she responds, loved an image. And 2:33 with a good morning. 2:34, he responds with looks like a strong fist up emoji. And 2:35, there's also an incoming from Doug with just a little rectangle. 2:36, she responds with LOL. 2:37, he responds, what y'all working on? And that's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 2:38, 15 minutes later, she responds, last cram, LOL, using big boxes and getting the last loose stuff packed up and ready. And also responds on 2:39, how's it going over there? Making progress? He responds at 2:40, number 2:40 at 1:18 in the afternoon. Loose stuff should be a chapter in our book, LOL. Got everything out and in garage ready to throw on truck except couch, aka
So
bed.
I
Pretty much
actually
empty.
think this is
Taking
the
solely
day
to get
of
his shots,
now.
then to doggy spa to get groomed and stay until ready to go. 2:41, he adds, I'll come there after drop him off at 3.
So the dog that he punched into unconsciousness, I'm fairly certain they're talking about. I don't know if they had another dog, but I think that is the dog, which is just deeply upsetting.
2:42, she responds with the action of laughing at a previous message, and it just repeats. Another action of liking a previous message, then adds, 2:44 adds, great, could you run by Lowe's before you come over and grab a few large and mediums? 2:45, he responds, sure, I need a few too, which is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. At 2:35, number 2:46, which is at 2:35 in the afternoon, it's just a like by her, sure, I need a few, which just repeated from earlier, and then adds, just to be safe, let's do 10 of each just for the last bit here. 2:48 from Doug, he likes the previous message and adds, and 2:49, okay, let me know anything else you think of. 2:50, she responds, tape. 2:51, and also adds LOL. 2:52, he responds, ha, K. 2:53, just finished vet, headed to spot, LOL. 2:54, she laughed at that previous message. 2:55, he says, headed there. 2:56, she responds, okay. The next line, 2:57, I'm here out front. She responds, okay, 1 minute.
Now, when he says, I'm here out front, and she responds, okay, 1 minute, about what time is that during the day?
That's about 3:54 in the afternoon.
Okay, and the next message is at about what time?
3:55 in the afternoon.
And the next after that?
After that, it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
So there's an hour and several minutes in between these two.
Correct.
Okay, so after, okay, 1 minute, what is said?
Then 2:59, about to head back from Doug. And then the message after that appears to be an attachment at 5:11 in the afternoon.
And I'm clicking on the attachment for the record.
I guess
That
that's
appears to be,
all.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It appears to be maybe the U-Haul truck that they're loading up.
And that was sent from Doug.
That was 5:11. Yeah, that was incoming. Yes, from Doug to Ashley.
Okay, and then the next message?
The next is from Doug, and this is number 261. Everything in except couch and 10 medium boxes and tutu cab, LOL. 262, she laughed at the image. 263, she responds, ha, OMG. 264, he responds with trucker runaway, and that's at 5:32 p.m.
At 5:32 p.m., was that the last communication between these two?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. Judge, can we approach just a moment?
Yes.
Before.
So they're going to approach. That was the text thread between Ashley and Doug in the days
So, I mean,
leading
usually-
up to, and now they're going to go into arguments over the video admissibility. So specifically, and the judge is going to dismiss everybody except the attorneys to discuss the metadata. Again, that was it. You remember earlier, just a little while ago, you heard that like do-do-do, like in the background. That was the video that they're going to talk about now in arguments.
I had a chance to research and we obviously weren't.
If you've got case law, contrary to what people may think, I want to make the right decision. So if you've got case law, I want to hear it.
I don't know, LUMAR Southern, or this case.
I'll take a copy if you have one.
In favor of the court's.
They're going to case law.
Into evidence. The third DCA here said the court erred. The images and text messages were found on the defendant's cellular phone.
Can you slow down just a little bit for the court reporter?
Sorry, I apologize. The images and text messages were found on the defendant's cellular phone, seized pursuant to a search of the defendant's home through a warrant shortly after the alleged incident. This fact was testified by the state's forensic expert and is sufficient to authenticate the exhibits. Here, those phones have been in evidence since the day before. The contents of them were admitted with a trial exhibit today and not objected to. The only thing is this one video was objected to this attachment. And the state would argue based on this case that we have established this phone was properly searched, properly downloaded, and the material was found on the defendant's phone, the video. found on the defendant's phone, and therefore the state should be admitted.
All right. Mr. Taylor?
Just 1 second, Your Honor. Okay, U.S. versus Caldwell lends the evidence. Cannot do that. He can only say this is a video. It was Sergeant Keilas cannot do that. He can only say this is a video. It was on the phone. He can't say it's a true and accurate reproduction of what took place on that morning. He doesn't know, for example, who was there that might not have appeared in the video, what the motivation was that brought them there. He wouldn't be able to say whether it was under coercive circumstances. I don't think he qualifies to be able to lay that predicate. And the second reason why I don't think this case is applicable is in this case, they held that it was admissible because it constitutes evidence of motive. Judge, this is a second-degree murder case. As the court knows, motive in second-degree murder is not an element. There is no obligation that murder be proven. I don't think they can lay the necessary predicate for it.
So, in case you couldn't hear that, essentially what Ashley's attorney is arguing is that they don't want to admit this video because it's essentially, again, a video of Doug, Ashley, her mother, her daughter, and Doug at a restaurant, seemingly getting along, laughing, having a good time. This was sent, I believe, again, a week prior to Doug's murder, and now the state wants it in because, again, it paints this picture of, oh, they were getting along, they were trying to reconcile, or Ashley was leading him on, and so it definitely supports more of the state's theory. But what Mr. Taylor is arguing is, oh my god, my Siri is activating. What Mr. Taylor is arguing is that Sergeant Keilas, who we were just listening back to testimony on, who extracted the cell phone data, testified to the context into which this meeting took place. So, like, he can't testify to, oh, like they seem to be getting along, because he doesn't exactly know. What he can testify to is the exact data instead of the representation or characterizations of the scene that is set in place in the video. So that's essentially what they argue. Let's hear what the judge has to say, and then we'll pick up back with Sergeant Keilas, and then we'll get into
State rebuttal.
Just that I think
the end of the video.
defense counsel's arguments go to the weight, not the admissibility. I think this case stands for the fact that we've entered without objection cell phones that contain this video, and then now without objection the trial exhibit with the attachments and the CD. The objection was just to one after, which I think is also an issue, but I think we don't have to get there. But I think this case stands for the fact that once we laid the predicate that this was a properly searched phone and that the data on it was properly removed, and the detective testified that everything was in order, then we laid the predicate for the contents of the attachments to also be admissible based on this case that I can't say the first name of.
What was the date and time of this particular message?
The message was, I don't know that you can read the small print on that, but there's a copy. But it is, if you're wondering if it was before the Panera conversation or after.
I want to know the day and time that this attachment was sent.
Yes.
It was sent 9/20 of 2020 at 6:40 p.m.
What number are you referring to?
of 25.
And the Excel spreadsheet, which is the data dump from the defendant's cell phone, shows it's in blue. So it's from,
Defendant's phone. So it's from the defendant's phone to, I'm sorry, from.
Correct. It's
the
from-
phone to the defendant's phone.
right, it's from Doug Benefield's phone
Yes.
to Ashley Benefield's phone.
Yes.
So
Sorry,
yeah, a
any
week
further argument? Because I wanted
before.
to ask that question though specifically. Lynn.
That's okay.
Anything else?
No.
All right. No objection or no judge?
I thought you said, do I have any further
Anything
arguments?
else? And you said no?
I don't. No, sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I said, if there's case law out there that is contrary to a prior ruling, I think it needs to be brought to my attention. And what State versus Lumarque, Lumarque, 44 Southern 3rd, 171, at 172 to 173, Florida 3rd DCA 2010, states pretty unequivocally, the images and text messages found on the defendant's cell phone seized pursuant to a search of the defendant's home through a warrant, which it wasn't here. It's my understanding, the testimony that I heard was that they were provided to law enforcement shortly after the alleged incident. This fact, testified by the state's forensic expert, is sufficient to authenticate these exhibits. So the issue is authentication, and that's where I had initially sustained because because obviously there was got to be no witness. This Keilas, Kielas, sorry.
He says Keilas entry as how to remember it. It helps me.
Keilas certainly could not authenticate the video. Just to be clear, I'm not sure, I think it's on the record that it's going to be a video of the defendant and her mother that's taken by a third party. I outlined it pretty in depth in my order denying the stand your ground. And like I said, certainly the technical services unit couldn't authenticate it, saying that it's the traditional way, that it's a fair and accurate depiction of the events of that day. So then I had mentioned that the bench.
Right, because again, we don't know exactly. And for me, one, like, you don't know if that's even a video that was shot and taken that week, that day, or if it's an older video. That's what I also am curious to know about. And if it was, like the judge is saying, he can't testify to whether that was a correct depiction of the scene in place. He can't testify and say, yeah, Ashley and Doug seem to be getting along. All he can testify to is the data, the date, the time, where it came from, what the source was, and go from there. So
Perhaps the state could lay the silent witness predicate. However, I don't find that the silent witness predicate was sufficiently laid by the detective Keilas. However, apparently, according to this case, it is authenticated by the fact that it was found on the defendant's cell phone that was seized shortly after the incident. And at this point, it's been sufficiently testified to by the state's witnesses and the forensics expert that he did find this video on there. In fact, in addressing the defense arguments, the third DCA goes on to say, regardless of how these images and text messages might have found their way onto the defendant's cell phone, the state has presented sufficient evidence at this stage. Certainly, they met the admissibility that these exhibits constitute evidence of motive. As we've discussed, motive is not an element. But the state has made the argument in the past and makes today that the entry of these items is not for the truth of the matter asserted, but to show the relationship and interactions between the parties in the days leading up to the homicide and the normal texts and banter and communication of a married couple that is in the middle of a divorce. So for those reasons, I will reverse my prior decision, and the video would be admissible under this case.
So I guess it
we
wasn't
did that specifically.
admissible in the stand your ground hearing. Interesting.
So you could finish with your direct,
Yes.
and the ruling is made so that it's available on cross. I know we talked about different options, but I'm glad we did it that way because I think it makes a lot more sense.
So we can recall him and play it, and then we'll end it with.
Correct. So when the jury left, he was on the stand.
Oh, so sorry.
Right. So I'm just going to put him back on the stand. The jury won't know any different. All right. So we can bring.
Can we take a quick restroom break?
So they're going to bring the jury back after they take a little quick break, picking up exactly where they left off, just playing this video, and then we're going to get to cross.
Attachment at this time.
This is a
I don't
video.
even know what it's doing. I think it's giving you clues that I gotta guess.
Move myself so you can see the full thing.
Get real. Real.
Working mother, not a working mother.
Working mother, not a working mother.
Not a working mother. I live in a.
Slum. Oh no, it's running out of time. House. Real house. Wife. Oh, housewife. Oh.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Notice how Ashley
Cross.
looks
Give it to
too when she was watching that video. So that was taken by Doug. If you guys never heard of that game, heads up. I think you can actually record, I think it records as you're actually playing it, so you could watch back and save the video. But again, do you think that helps the state's case? Probably. I mean, it shows that they're having a good time, they're laughing, correlating it with the date in which it was sent to Ashley, if it was taken that same day as well too. It paints the picture of they were getting along. Was she stringing him along? So I definitely don't think it helps the defense. But at the same time, if you flip things around, you look at it from the perspective of, well, yeah, they have good days and they have bad days. And, just because Ashley's hanging out, obviously Doug's going to probably behave a certain way, maybe in front of her mom than he would in front of just Ashley one on one alone. They're also in a public place. He's trying to win her back. He's doing all the right things. It could be genuine. So, but I think it's interesting Ashley's reaction after the video is done playing when it pans back to
Oh,
her.
housewives of, oh, real, oh,
Okay.
You could tell like she's remembering that moment. Like she's thinking back to that exact day, and like there you could have complicated feelings. And I said this in my last video. If you're in a relationship like that, you could totally have complicated feelings. Just because you're a survivor doesn't mean that you don't have love for that person. And she might be looking at this as like, wow, this was like, yeah, a good moment. And then that moment you might convince yourself, like, maybe things are different now. Maybe maybe we need to go through all of this in order for us to see the light at the end of the tunnel, for him to actually change. I don't think it's that far out of the realm of possibility to believe that, and for her mindset to go. And obviously I'm just speculating, but I know how much back and forth I've had in situations exactly like these, where sometimes it is genuine happiness and you do find relief and you do think things are going to get better and you are optimistic, or you're just happy you're getting along and there's no issues and there's no problems. It's easy to just not think about all the bad stuff, because in that moment he seems fine. He seems like exactly like the guy maybe that she thought she married. But that's one video. That's one video. And one video doesn't paint an entire picture of what their relationship was really like. So yeah, they could have good days, they could have bad days. But I don't see how that proves Ashley's leading him on or stringing him along. He seems like he's in full control based on the conversation thread we just read through. He's the one who's initiating all the contact with her. Yes, she's responding, but she also has to co-parent with him. She has to respond. Because who the heck knows what's going to happen if she doesn't respond? Aside from him just being really angry, what kind of legal action is he going to take? Yeah, I don't know what the details of their agreement were. And she's probably thinking, yeah, it's probably just better if we just try and get along. Especially in front of the kid. The kid was there too. Her daughter. And I don't know, what kind. I don't know Ashley. I don't know her mom. I don't know, obviously, her daughter. I don't know what their dynamic is, and just talking about all of this, I don't know. I don't know. I can only speculate, but there's no evidence of Ashley trying to turn her daughter. I mean, granted, her daughter, I think, was only 2 at the time, but against the father. So she's probably trying to get along in front of the kid. Even though the kid's only 2, and they're in a public place. Or she might also think, wow, he's nice today. This is the man I wanted to be with. I don't know. I'm just speculating. What say you?
Thank you. I have no further questions.
So now they're going to get to cross.
Cross. And Mr. Taylor, do you want the screen or do you want the lights back up?
I'm going to use the screen.
Yes, sir. We'll leave it as is.
Do you want your?
Good morning, Sergeant Kielas.
Good morning.
I want to make sure that we can establish the contours of your testimony. From the technical services unit, you're capable and authorized to extract this information from the cell phones of both Doug Benefield and Ashley Benefield.
Yes.
You don't know the context about the messages. You just are able to read what's printed.
Good question.
I can read what's printed from the extraction, yes.
Right. But for example, there were quite a few Bible verses. You wouldn't be able to necessarily tell us that Doug Benefield's a very religious guy. You just can tell us, here's the Bible verses that he posted.
Yes, I can tell you that he sent a Bible verse.
Okay. And you can't tell us the reason that either party may have had for sending a particular text. You can only tell us this is what the text says.
Correct.
You can't tell us whether the text is true or false. You can only tell us what the text says.
Correct.
You can't tell us if the text is genuine or motivated by fear. You can only tell us what it says.
Correct.
I'd like to pass you what we've marked as Defendant's Exhibit 3 and ask you if you can identify it.
I would object to the on the scope.
Okay, I don't know.
You're gonna approach.
I'm going to pass to you, Sergeant Keilas, what I've marked now as Defendant's Exhibit 3.
So the defense wins that one.
Those would be, would they not, text messages that you also extracted?
I believe these were the text messages that you may highlighted during a deposition, and
Yeah.
we confirmed that these came from, I believe, Doug's phone.
Correct.
Yes.
And that we requested.
I apologize, Judge. I do think we need to approach it.
They're at sidebar again. Whole lot of sidebars. Quite the Karen Reed flashback. Although at least we're not getting any fan.
A little bit upstairs in the jury assembly room at 12:45.
But yeah, and then they dismissed the jury.
The advocate talking here. 12:45. All right. And it's 45.
So yeah, I think they take a break and then they come back. They argue, I believe, more over this video. And then they go into the medical examiner. But I think that line of questioning was really smart because, again, it just removes all of the context out of it because, again, that is not, he is just a fact-finding witness of this is what the cell phone data says. Now, unlike the Karen Reed case, you know, we weren't using the cell phone data to directly define, sorry about that, my wife's putting away some of the dishes. It doesn't directly define where we're not looking for cell phone pings or trying to extract Apple Health data. We're not trying to figure out what happened or how it happened. We're just trying to figure out what was said. What was said. We don't know why. The only one who can testify to why would be Ashley or Doug, if Doug were alive. So I think those are really smart questions because, again, it's not that witness. And I think playing that video, I think it was good for the state. I think it definitely helped their case in just creating this picture of, look, they're getting along only just days before this happened. So do I think it was a be and end all for the defense? No, I don't. I think you can kind of see it from two different perspectives, depending on which way you're leaning. So that being said, that wraps up today's video. Next video, we're going to get into the medical examiner's testimony, which is super interesting. Their last witness as well, too. I think it was a firearm expert. Not really a ton came out of that testimony that I felt like was super relevant to this case because, again, it's not a who done it or how done it. We already know those two things. The only thing significant out of that I really felt came out of the fact that John Sants, the next door neighbor who placed a 911 call, whose testimony we heard on day one, had testified that the GUN seemed like it was jammed. So that'll be interesting to dive into. That's a super, super short and sweet testimony. We'll go over that in our next video. But that being said, did you find, I mean, I find religion just so deeply fascinating, and just specifically with this case and just the pattern of how he's sending the messages, what they all seem to revolve around this one theme of being a sinner and righteousness, like trying to live a righteous life. It's just very, very interesting. I don't know if you guys have any deeper thoughts in regards to that, but let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you think there was like an underlying meaning before it? Are you as fascinated with religion as I am? Let me know in the comment section below. But if you like today's video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you never miss another video from me. With that being said, we'll get into the medical examiner's testimony as well as that firearm expert, and we will rest. The state will rest, and we'll dive in tomorrow with the defense's case. Okay. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.